Welcome to Brampton Focus. One of the hottest topics right now on the docket is fluoridation of water. The Ontario Dental Association and the Ontario Minister of Health all endorse this, but there are some community members who are totally against it. My name is Michael A Charbon. Liesa Cianchino is here, and she is the chairman of Concerned Residents to Stop Fluoridation of Water. Coming up next, right here on Brampton Focus. And welcome back to Brampton Focus. I'm joined by Ms. Liesa Cianchino, who is the chairman of Concerned Residents of Peel to End Fluoridation, and also Mr. Don McLeod from Brampton Focus. As we talked in our open, fluoridation of water has become a huge issue. Many people are for, others are against. For instance, Quebec City, Calgary, Waterloo, Windsor, and several other cities have eliminated fluoride or fluoridation of their water. Whereas in Ontario, the Ontario Health Ministry, Dr. Eric Hoskins, who is the Ontario Health Minister, stated that as an acting chief and medical officer of health, Dr. David Williams also co-signed a letter urging municipal leaders to support the continuation and the use of fluoride. When we look at the Peel region, both Caledon, Brampton, and Mississauga, those three mayors have all endorsed the fluoridation of water. It is an issue. Some people say it is a medical issue. Hence why we wanted to ask Liesa to come and join us today. Liesa, thank you so much for being here with Brampton Focus. You are vehement in the position that fluoridation of water is not something that we should just accept. Give our folks at home a little bit of a perspective of where you're coming from and why we should be concerned about this.
Yes, thank you, Michael. I think the residents need to understand that it's not something that is being put into our water that's actually working to prevent dental caries. So until people realize that, then they will understand the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I think that is first and foremost. Also, I learned that this chemical that they're using is it's not pharmaceutical grade. It is a toxic waste byproduct from the phosphate fertilizer industry. And unfortunately, this chemical has not been tested for human consumption. So I think this is what needs to get out so that people understand why there's this argument. If it in fact was something that was working for the teeth and preventing cavities, I don't think any of us who oppose this would be arguing this fact.
But in good conscience, I have to ask you, are you a doctor? Are you a chemist? And do you think that the mayors of Peel, all three of them who endorsed it, would in any way endorse anything that could harm us? Your claims and your accusations are things that we should take note of, but it could be considered inflammatory to think that mayors and that municipalities would be doing something to endanger our communities, because there's been many people who have said that fluoridation of water is an important point. I kind of want to know where you're coming from, because if someone was to take everything at face value, we could be literally, some would say, poisoning our people.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think this is, you've hit on some wonderful points. We rely on our medical officers of health. We rely on the health minister. And this document that you just referred to from January the 7th, he sent that out to all heads of councils. I'm trying to confirm that, which would mean 444 municipalities. Now, if in fact this was not an issue, we would not be arguing this. And so I think it's important that if our health minister is saying, and the letter reads, I'm sorry I don't have a copy for you, but it reads warning, pretty much, warning municipalities to not remove fluoridation because they're seeing that community after community are starting to remove it. So that's the way the letter starts out. And then it goes on to repeat the same the same thing that has been going on for years, that all 90 organizations like the CDC, the World Health Organization, the dental associations, they all claim that water fluoridation is safe and effective. So that is pretty much what the letter says, and it was signed by also the acting Chief Medical Officer of Health. So I think this is very, very important. I am not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I'm a mom of 3 children, and I just, once I learned about this, I needed to take action. And I think as you ask me more questions, and I know Dawn is here, hopefully we can help educate the residents and just share, and then you can make your own decision. Because right now, when you mentioned that the mayors, that came to a very big shock to all of us, because the mayors have now endorsed it.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we see. So the Health Canada, they come down and they send you the information saying it's safe. So now the mayors feel very confident that they're saying, yes, it is in fact safe. Now, I have a lawsuit, so I know that you're going to be asking me questions about that. And so it'll be up to a judge to decide the fate of fluoridation. So
now, Liesa, just to give people a background, I mean, fluoridation was introduced after the Second World War in 1945 to a lot of countries, including North America, basically. The funny part is that even today in Europe, there's many countries that don't have fluoridation in the water. In fact, most of the European countries do not have, including, I think, Australia as well. And it's a situation where, I mean, a lot of people lump your group or people like you with the anti-vaccine people and lump you together saying, well, there's just a bunch of crazies talking about stuff that they don't know, and they're not science-based, and so on and so forth. How do you react to that? How would you respond to people like that?
Well, Dawn, you know, you've just hit a nail on the head, because that happened to me a few years ago. I was on 1010, and you know, the gentleman said, you know, please forgive me. I hope you don't mind me asking you, Liesa. And I think this is where, you know, we need to say, please don't even bring that up. This is not about vaccinations right now. This is not about, you know, the GMOs in our food. We've got toxic chemicals in our world everywhere. So I'm glad you raised that, because we are not here to discuss those issues. And you know, when you said that Europe is 95% not fluoridated, or pardon me, it's actually 98%, I think, right now. And that is reassuring to us, because we have letters from many countries like Belgium, where their health ministers said very clearly that they're, you know, they don't want to mass medicate their population. It's unethical to put this in the water.
And I just want to jump in as we will continue this discussion. Interestingly enough, John Sprovieri from Brampton is against fluoridation, so he's going against the mayor. So when we return, we'll talk a lot more about fluoridation. My name is Michael A Charbon. You're watching Brampton Focus. Be back with more right after this.
Personally, I prefer taken out. Just things I've read that fluoride does to us and does inside of us. I don't see the benefit long term, so I would opt for it out.
I believe that they should take it out, definitely. Yeah, I think it's harmful to children, and they've proven it how many times that it's not good for our system, so I believe it should be taken out.
I haven't bought a bottle of water since I came here. I drink the water out of the tap, and there's nothing wrong with it.
My opinion is very straightforward. Leave it in. It's ridiculous to take it out. There's no science to indicate that it is harmful, and it is very costly from a dental perspective not to have fluoride in your water. Very costly, and costly to all employers who are buying dental insurance, because the usage increases dramatically.
And welcome back to Brampton Focus. We're talking about fluoridation of water and its harm or its benefit. I'm joined today by Miss Liesa Cianchino, who is the chairman of the Concerned Residents of Peel to End Fluoridation, and also Mr. Don McLeod from Brampton Focus. I'll read you a quote actually from Mayor Crombie, which was just released several days ago. Removing fluoridation will widen the gap between the rich and the poor, and it is unacceptable and irresponsible to make life harder for our most vulnerable residents. Hence the point of saying that fluoridation helps dental care. We've also had representation from the Ontario Chief Medical Officer and several other officials who have said that fluoridation is an important issue and something that we should continue. As we said at the outset of the show, the three mayors from Caledon, Brampton, and Mississauga have all endorsed it. And earlier, we had an opportunity to take our Brampton cameras and to speak to and have an occasion to ask some questions to Madam Mayor Linda Jeffries. Madam Mayor, thank you so much for joining us on Brampton Focus. I wanted to ask you, with all the mayors endorsing the fluoridation of water, some community members are vehemently against this. What is your position?
Well, I would say that it's not all three cities, it's all three mayors of those cities, and we don't speak for all of the members of council, but the mayors felt strongly that it was important to provide leadership. And I would say that, you know, I don't think that there's been any serious scientific evidence that has led me to believe that any other action would be the right one. I have confidence in the Ontario Medical Officer of Health and certainly the Region of Peel's Medical Officer of Health.
One of the points is that fluoridation of water is important for people who are financially at a lower scale of things. How would you react to that comment?
You know, I think that there are a number of interesting arguments that are coming up, and I welcome the debate. I think the debate is a good one. But I think that we're playing with public policy, and really nobody on council is qualified to make that kind of decision. I have to rely on evidence-based decision-making, and the evidence that we are presented with by the federal government, by the provincial government, and certainly by our local health experts is that fluoridation makes sense for those of low income and those with the income in order to do the dental work that they need. So poverty is an issue in Peel, and certainly it's an issue that we see in other cities when they don't have fluoridation. The incidence of dental caries is much, much higher. So I want a city where we have the best evidence guiding what we do as a city, and I support fluoridation in the water. So
final question. This has been put back to committee. So what do you believe are Brampton's next steps?
Well, I think, you know, we're going to participate in those committees and listen to the experts, and certainly I'll be reaching out to our provincial counterparts to have that conversation. I've had discussions with mayors in other cities. In fact, I spoke with the mayor of Oakville about this issue before. I welcome the public consultation. I'll be putting out a newsletter, actually, encouraging people to participate, to engage, to ask questions, and to understand the magnitude of this decision.
Madam Mayor Linda Jeffries, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us with Brampton Focus, and we appreciate your time. Liesa, you heard that. I mean, there we are, a public official stating. As I said, we also have the Ontario Chief Medical Officer. With all this momentum building to say we need it, we have to have it. It's quite a hill that you have to climb to get folks to understand where you're coming from and to say that we don't want it in our water. How can we feel that positiveness?
Well, you know what, you've just nailed it when you think of the fact that we've been working on this for many, many years now. And as Dawn, well, we had discussed about various communities that are stopping it, and I think you alluded to, you know, Windsor stopping it, Calgary. BC is almost fluoride free. I think it's just over 2% left to go. Quebec is almost fluoride free. I think they've got 4 more communities to go. Dr. Gilles Parent and all the people out there are working very, very hard. So it's just very interesting how none of this has been out in the forefront, either in Mississauga, in Brampton, or in Caledon. So just to let you know, we went to council back in 2011, and we've launched a lawsuit. So now all of a sudden, there's this urge to go out and do a public consultation. That was never done. This is why we've done what we're doing. So unfortunately, they had a water fluoridation committee meeting that just took place. I had an event last week, and I brought my lawyer, and I brought Dr. Paul Connett and Dr. Hardy Lineback. And, you know, they shared the information with the residents. This was the day before the city, Region of Peel, had their water fluoridation committee. Now they spent...
But you welcome the debate. I mean, the whole point about debate is to be able to see both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going up against mayors, you're going against the Ontario Health Minister. I mean, that's a serious thing. Now, it also, there's a budgetary point too. Right. $450,000 a year the municipality's spending on it.
And you're right. And this is where our municipality agreed, because of John Sprovieri insisting to have a water fluoridation committee formed, listen to the experts on both sides, because residents tried to bring the health leaders. We tried to have a roundtable discussion. The first time it failed. The second time it failed. They didn't show up. They didn't send their delegates. So then this was kind of forced on them to have a water fluoridation committee. So we as residents believed, okay, well, we'll put the lawsuit just kind of on hold a bit, and then we will, you know, they were paying to bring in the experts, and they were not satisfied with what the experts had to say, and now you want to go out to the public. This is not...
I feel your passion, and we have to continue this. I thought it was interesting that we saw the perspective of Brampton's mayor. When we come back in our third segment, I'm going to spend a little time, because I know Don has some questions as well. This is something that we have to talk about, and it's an issue, both financial, some would say it's poverty-driven because there is those elements, and others would say it's unnecessary. So when we come back in our final segment, we will reconvene with Liesa Cianchino, who is the chairman of Concerned Residents of Peel, to end the proliferation of fluoride in your water, and also Don McLeod. My name is Michael A Charbon. You're watching Brampton Focus. When we return, our final segment on the fluoridation of water. Come back. And welcome back to Brampton Focus, our final segment. We're talking about the fluoridation of water. I'm joined by Miss Liesa Cianchino, who is the chairman of Concerned Residents of Peel, to end fluoridation of water, and also Mr. Don McLeod from Brampton Focus. When we left in our last segment, we had the opportunity to talk to Mayor Jeffrey. I read a quote also from Madam Mayor Crombie. But interesting, left in May 2014, Health Canada admitted in an FOI, Freedom of Information Act, that they did not, or they do not have any toxicology or double-blind studies done anywhere in the world and at any time on hydrofluoric acid and the unrelated toxic waste being disposed of in our tap water and passed off as magic tooth medicine for the poor. That is one of those aspects. And we come full circle now, Liesa. This is the emotional rub, as one would say, that people are not going to have good teeth because of the fluoridation being removed from the water. But the bigger question asks, how do we say that we don't trust Ontario Chief's medical officer? How do we say we don't trust some of our civic leaders who are endorsing this? Where did we miss the disconnect?
Well, fluoridation has been going on for 71 years. Actually, this year it's 71, January 25th. And it started in Michigan and in Brantford. Michigan in the U.S. and in Brantford, Ontario. Now, when you referred to some comments, and I know Mayor Jeffries commented on the less fortunate, and this is a population that is actually being harmed more than the average citizen, because the average citizen can go out and have good, healthy foods, but are less fortunate, and I can speak to this very, very closely because I worked at a women's shelter, and I know what it means to go out and get your foods from the shelter, the processed foods. You know, you've got fluoride in many, many things, so the less fortunate in actuality are getting harmed more. So the information that's being shared is not accurate. We need to get this, you know, the facts need to go out. And when you said the freedom of information, this is exactly what one of our main arguments is. There are no toxicology studies for either the safety or the efficacy of this chemical. Hydrofluorosilicic acid, it goes by many names, hexa or fluorosilicic, and we call it HFSA for short. That chemical is what we, the Concerned Residents of Peel, are questioning. You are putting in a toxic it's actually a known neurotoxin right now in our drinking water. So if you haven't tested it, then how can you claim that it's safe and effective for us to consume? So I think that again is another issue that Health Canada, so if our health ministers and our mayors are endorsing it, well then they need to prove to us, which we've been asking since 2011, prove where are the tox studies, and no one has these studies. So this is really the bottom line. So to say that you're helping the poor is absolutely the total opposite.
Well, it's the emotional rub, right?
Yeah, and like just to expand on that, I mean, you know, that's one of the things that a lot of people talk about. It's helping the low-income families, and it's, you know, the fluoridation is necessary because of the dental work. A lot of people say that it's a situation where it lets the government off the hook, because what they're doing is they're not actually providing good dental care for the low-income people. In actual fact, what they're doing is just saying, here, drink more water. Now, the problem is, I mean, I grew up in a poor neighborhood, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have. And our teeth, I mean, I think going to a dentist is actually probably more helpful than actually drinking fluoridated water. But right now,
but no one's condoning that drinking fluoridated water is going to circumvent going to a dentist.
Exactly.
They're saying that the long-term effect of fluoridation in the water helps to deter dental decay, because dental decay can lead to blood problems, et cetera, et cetera. That's what their premise is.
But right now in the United States, I mean, I read this just recently. You know, a lot of people say, well, can you get too much fluoride? Well, in actual fact, you can get too much fluoride. 40.9% of adolescents in the United States between 12 and 15 have called what's fluorosis, right? Which is actually means the fluoride is eating away the dental enamel on their teeth. Almost 41% from 12 to 15. That's a pretty large percentile. I mean, there is, you know, we're not talking about, I don't think we're not talking about sort of a nutty, you know, sect that, you know, is, you know, going half-cocked off into the wilderness. I think it's a situation where a lot of people now, they want to know what's going into their bodies. GMO is a big one that you mentioned before. There's a lot of things that people want to know. There's a health movement, there's a conscious movement, and a naturalist movement. That people are being a little bit more conscious of what they're putting into their bodies, and I think it's a natural offshoot.
So Lisa, react to Don's point.
No, but absolutely, and I'm so happy that you brought that up. This dental fluorosis, I mean, when they say this is only cosmetic, I'll tell you, this is not just a cosmetic. It actually cripples these children, and I say that not lightly. I mean, everybody wants to have an opportunity to smile and feel good about themselves. So this harm is serious.
Your passion comes out of you. I want to give you an opportunity to talk to our folks at home, how they can get in touch with you and how they can get more informed, because you are really pushing a huge nut up a hill, as one would say, because you've got a lot of other people, not against you, but putting up barricades. And so how can our folks get in touch with you, and tell our folks exactly how they can help?
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I just would like to say that we've launched litigation to end fluoridation. We have an amazing lawyer. His name is Nader Hassan. We need to share this information, and I just would like to say it's our health, it's our right, and it's our choice.
Liesa Cianchino from the chairman at Concerned Residents to End Fluoridation in Peel. My name is Michael A Charbon. Thank you to Don McLeod. We'll be back with more in our next show. Thank you.